Chapter 3, How to Be a Genuine Fake. The cat has already been let out of the bag. The inside information is that yourself as just little me who came into this world and lives temporarily in a bag of skin is a hoax and a fake. The fact is that because no one thing or feature of this universe is separable from the whole, the only real you or self is the whole. The rest of this book will attempt to make this so clear that you will not only understand the words but feel the fact. The first step is to understand as vividly as possible how the hoax begins. We must first look at the form and behavior of the hoax itself. I have long been interested in trying to find out how people experience or sense their own existence. For what specific sensations do they use the word I? Few people seem to use the word for their whole physical organism. I have a body is more common than I am a body. We speak of my legs as we speak of my clothes, and I seems to remain intact even if the legs are amputated. We say, I speak, I walk, I think, and even I breathe. But we do not say, I shape my bones, I grow my nails, and I circulate my blood. We seem to use I for something in the body, but not really of the body, for much of what goes on in the body seems to happen to I in the same way as external events. I is used as the center of voluntary behavior and conscious attention, but not consistently. Breathing is only partially voluntary, and we say I was sick, or I dreamed, or I fell asleep, as if the verbs were not passive but active. Nevertheless, I usually refers to a center in the body, but different peoples feel it in different places. For some cultures, it is in the region of the solar plexus. The Chinese HSN, the heart, mind, or soul, is found in the center of the chest. But most Westerners locate the ego in the head, from which to center the rest of us dangles. The ego is somewhere behind the eyes and between the ears. It is as if there sat beneath the dome of the skull a controlling officer who wears earphones wired to the ears and watches a television screen wired to the eyes. Before him stands a great panel of dials and switches connected with all other parts of the body that yield conscious information or respond to the officer's will. This controlling officer sees sight, hears sounds, feels feelings, and has experiences. These are common but redundant ways of talking, for seeing a sight is just seeing, hearing a sound is just hearing, feeling a feeling is just feeling, and having an experience is just experiencing. But that these redundant phrases are so commonly used shows that most people think of themselves as separate from their thoughts and experiences. All this can get marvelously complicated when we begin to wonder whether our officer has another officer inside his head, and so ad infinitum. There was a young man who said, though it seems that I know, what I would like to see is the I that knows me when I know that I know that I know. One of the most important items in our officer's equipment is his recording and filing system, the memory which he constantly consults so as to know how to interpret and respond to his sensory input. Without this equipment, he could have no sensation of constancy, of being the same officer as he was seconds ago. Although memory records are much more fluid and elusive than photographic film or magnetic tape, the accumulation of memories is an essential part of the ego sensation. It gives the impression of oneself, the officer, as something that remains while life goes by, as if the conscious self were a stable mirror reflecting a passing procession. This further exaggerates the feeling of separateness, of oneself changing at a pace so much slower than outside events and inside thoughts that you seem to stand aside from them as an independent observer. But memories persist as the whirlpool persists. Conscious attention seems to scan them as computers scan their ever-cycling tapes or other storage mechanisms. Memory is an enduring pattern of motion, like the whirlpool, rather than an enduring substance, like a mirror, a wax tablet, or a sheet of paper. If memories are stored in neurons, there is no standing aside from the stream of events, for neurons flow along in the same stream as events outside the skull. After all, your neurons are part of my external world, and mine of yours. All our insides are outside, they're in the physical world. But conversely, the outside world has no color, shape, weight, heat, or motion without inside brains. It has these qualities only in relation to brains, which are, in turn, members of itself. Wherever people may feel that the ego is located and however much or little of the physical body is identified with it, almost all agree that I am not anything outside my skin. As Shakespeare's King John says to Hubert, within this wall of flesh, there is a soul counts thee her creditor. The skin is always considered as a wall, barrier, or boundary which definitively separates oneself from the world, despite the fact that it is covered with pores, breathing air, and with nerve ends relaying information. The skin informs us just as much as it outforms. It is as much a bridge as a barrier. Nevertheless, it is our firm conviction that beyond this wall of flesh lies an alien world only slightly concerned with us, so that much energy is required to command or attract its attention, or to change its behavior. It was there before we were born, and it will continue after we die. We live in it temporarily as rather unimportant fragments, disconnected and alone. This whole illusion has its history and ways of thinking, in the images, models, myths, and language systems which we have used for thousands of years to make sense of the world. These have had an effect on our perceptions, which seems to be strictly hypnotic. It is largely by talking that a hypnotist produces illusions and strange behavioral changes in his subjects. Talking coupled with relaxed fixation of the subject's conscious attention. The stage magician, too, performs most of his illusions by patter and misdirection of attention. Hypnotic illusions can be vividly sensuous and real to the subject, even after he has come out of the so-called hypnotic trance. It is then as if the human race had hypnotized or talked itself into the hoax of egocentricity. There is no one to blame but ourselves. We are not victims of a conspiracy arranged by an external god or some secret society of manipulators. If there is any biological foundation for the hoax, it lies only in the brain's capacity for narrowed, attentive consciousness, hand in hand with its power of recognition, of knowing about knowing and thinking about thinking with the use of images and languages. My problem as a writer using words is to dispel the illusions of language while employing one of the languages that generates them. I can succeed only on the principle of a hair of the dog that bit you. Apart from such human artifacts as buildings and roads, especially Roman and American roads, our universe, including ourselves, is thoroughly wiggly. Its features are wiggly in both shape and conduct. Clouds, mountains, plants, rivers, animals, coastlines, all wiggle. They wiggle so much and in so many different ways that no one can really make out where one wiggle begins and another ends, whether in space or in time. Some French classicist of the 18th century complained that the Creator had seriously fallen down on the job by failing to arrange the stars with any elegant symmetry, for they seemed to be sprayed through space like the droplets from a breaking wave. Is all this one thing wiggling in many different ways, or many things wiggling on their own? Are there things that wiggle, or are the wigglings the same as the things? It depends upon how you figure it. Millennia ago, some genius discovered that such wiggles as fish and rabbits could be caught in nets. Much later, some other genius thought of catching the world in a net. By itself, the world goes something like this. But now look at this wiggle through a net. The net has cut the big wiggle into little wiggles, all contained in the squares of the same size. Order has been imposed on chaos. We can now say that the wiggle goes so many squares to the left, so many to the right, so many up, or so many down, and at last we have its number. Centuries later, the same image of the net was imposed upon the world as the lines of both celestial and terrestrial latitude and longitude, as graph paper for plotting mathematical wiggles, as pigeonholes for filing, and as the ground plan for cities. The net has thus become one of the presiding images of human thought. But it is always an image, and just as no one can use the equator to tie up a package, the real wiggly world slips like water through our imaginary nets. However much we divide, count, sort, or classify this wiggling into particular things and events, this is no more than a way of thinking about the world. It is never actually divided. Another powerful image is the ceramic model of the universe, in which we think of it as so many forms of one or more substances, as pots are forms of clay, and as God is said to have created Adam from the dust. This has been an especially troublesome image, bewildering philosophers and scientists for centuries with such idiotic questions as, how does form or energy influence matter? What is matter? What happens to form, the soul, when it leaves matter, the body? How is it that mere matter has come to be arranged in orderly forms? What is the relationship between mind and body? Problems that remain persistently insoluble should always be suspected as questions asked in the wrong way, like the problem of cause and effect. Make a spurious division of one process into two, forget that you have done it, and then puzzle for centuries as to how the two get together. So with form and matter, because no one ever discovered a piece of formless matter or an immaterial form, it should have been obvious that there was something wrong with the ceramic model. The world is no more formed out of matter than trees are made of wood. The world is neither form nor matter, for these are two clumsy terms for the same process, known vaguely as the world or existence. Yet the illusion that every form consists of, or is made of, some kind of basic stuff is deeply embedded in our common sense. We have quite forgotten that both matter and meter are alike derived from the Sanskrit root mater, to measure, and that the material world means no more than the world is measured or measurable by such abstract images as nets or matrices, inches, seconds, grams, and decibels. The term material is often used as a synonym for the word physical from the Greek physis, nature, and the original Indo-European bahayu, to become. There is nothing in the words to suggest that the material or physical world is made of any kind of stuff, according to the ceramic model, which must henceforth be called the crackpot model. But the crackpot model of the world as formed of clay has troubled more than the philosophers and the scientists. It lies at the root of the two major myths which have dominated Western civilization, and these, one following upon the other, have played an essential part in forming the illusion of the real person. If the world is basically mere stuff like clay, it is hard to imagine that such inert dough can move and form itself. Energy, form, and intelligence must therefore come into the world from outside. The lump must be leavened. The world is therefore conceived as an artifact, like a jar, a statue, a table, or a bell. And if it is an artifact, someone must have made it, and someone must also have been responsible for the original stuff. That too must have been made. In Genesis, the primordial stuff, without form and void, is symbolized as water. And as water does not wave without wind, nothing can happen until the Spirit of God moves upon its face. The forming and moving of matter is thus attributed to intelligent spirit, to a conscious force of energy informing matter, so that its various shapes come and go, live and die. Yet in the world as we know it, many things are clearly wrong, and one hesitates to attribute these to the astonishing mind capable of making this world in the beginning. We are loath to believe that cruelty, pain, and malice come directly from the root and ground of being, and hope fervently that God at least is the perfection of all that we can imagine as wisdom and justice. We need not enter here into the fabulous and insoluble problem of evil, which this model of the universe creates, save to note that it arises from the model itself. The peoples who developed this myth were ruled by patriarchs or kings, and such super kings as the Egyptian, Chaldean, and Persian monarchs suggested the image of God as the monarch of the universe, perfect in wisdom and justice, love and mercy, yet nonetheless stern and exacting. I am not, of course, speaking of God as conceived by the most subtle Jewish, Christian, and Islamic theologians, but of the popular image, for it is the vivid image rather than the tenuous concept which has the greater influence on common sense. The image of God as a personal being, somehow outside or other than the world, had the merit of letting us feel that life is based on intelligence, that the laws of nature are everywhere consistent in that they proceed from one ruler, and that we could let our imaginations go to the limit in conceiving the sublime qualities of this supreme and perfect being. The image also gave everyone a sense of importance and meaning, for this God is directly aware of every tiniest fragment of dust and vibration of energy, since it is just his awareness of it that enables it to be. This awareness is also love, and, for angels and men at least, he has planned an everlasting life of the purest bliss, which is to begin at the end of mortal time. But of course, there are strings attached to this reward, and those who purposely and relentlessly deny or disobey the divine will must spend eternity in agonies as intense as the bliss of good and faithful subjects. The problem of this image of God was that it became too much of a good thing. Children working at their desks in school are almost always put off when even a kindly and respected teacher watches over their shoulders. How much more disconcerting to realize that each single deed, thought, and feeling is watched by the teacher of teachers, that nowhere on earth or in heaven is there any hiding place from that eye, which sees all and judges all. To many people, it was therefore an immense relief when Western thinkers began to question this image and to assert that the hypothesis of God was of no help in describing or predicting the course of nature. If everything, they said, was the creation and the operation of God, the statement had no more logic than everything is up. But as so often happens, when one tyrant is dethroned, a worse takes his place. The crackpot myth was retained without the potter. The world was still understood as an artifact, but on the model of an automatic machine. The laws of nature were still there, but no lawmaker. According to the deists, the Lord had made this machine and set it going, but then went to sleep or off on a vacation. But according to the atheists, naturalists, and agnostics, the world was fully automatic. It had constructed itself, though not on purpose. The stuff of matter was supposed to consist of atoms like minute billiard balls, so small as to permit no further division or analysis. Allow these atoms to wiggle around in various permutations and combinations for an indefinitely long time, and at some time in virtually infinite time, they will fall into the arrangement that we now have as the world. The old story of the monkeys and typewriters. In this fully automatic model of the universe, shape and stuff survived as energy and matter. Human beings, mind and body included, were parts of the system, and thus they were possessed of intelligence and feeling as a consequence of the same interminable gyrations of atoms. But the trouble about the monkeys with typewriters is that when at last they get around to typing the Encyclopedia Britannica, they may at any moment relapse into gibberish. Therefore, if human beings want to maintain their fluky status and order, they must work with full fury to defeat the merely random processes of nature. It is most strongly emphasized in this myth that matter is brute and energy blind, that all nature outside human and some animal skins is a profoundly stupid and insensitive mechanism. Those who continued to believe in someone up there who cares were ridiculed as woolly-minded wishful thinkers. Poor weaklings unable to face man's grim predicament in a heartless universe where survival is the sole privilege of the tough guys. If the all-too-intelligent God was disconcerting, relief in getting rid of him was short-lived. He was replaced by the cosmic idiot, and people began to feel more estranged from the universe than ever. This situation merely reinforced the illusion of the loneliness and separateness of the ego, now a mental mechanism. And people calling themselves naturalists began the biggest war on nature ever waged. In one form or another, the myth of the fully automatic model has become extremely plausible, and in some scientific and academic disciplines, it is as much a sacrosanct dogma as any theological doctrine of the past, despite contrary trends in physics and biology. For there are fashions in myth, and the world-conquering West of the 19th century needed a philosophy of life in which realpolitik, victory for the tough people who face the bleak facts, was the guiding principle. Thus, the bleaker the facts you face, the tougher you seem to be. So we vied with each other to make the fully automatic model of the universe as bleak as possible. Nevertheless, it remains a myth, with all the positive and negative features of myth as an image used for making sense of the world. It is doubtful whether Western science and technology would have been possible unless we had tried to understand nature in terms of mechanical models. According to Joseph Needham, the Chinese, despite all their sophistication, made little progress in science because it never occurred to them to think of nature as mechanism, as composed of separable parts, and obeying logical laws. Their view of the universe was organic. It was not a game of billiards in which the balls knocked each other around in a cause and effect series. What were causes and effects to us were to them correlatives, events that arose mutually like back and front. The parts of their universe were not separable, but as fully interwoven as the act of selling with the act of buying. A made universe, whether of the crackpot or fully automatic model, is made of bits, and the bits are the basic realities of nature. Nature is therefore to be understood by microscopy and analysis, to find out what the bits are and how they are put together. This was the view of the nominalist philosophers of the late Middle Ages, who strongly opposed the then-called realists for maintaining that such entities as mankind or human nature were real substances underlying the accidents of particular men and women. Every individual was therefore an example or case of the human substance, though the word as then used did not mean matter or stuff, but a kind of essence stance, under, its particular manifestations. The nominalists maintained that this was nonsense. For them, mankind was no more than the sum total of individual people. Mankind was not a substance, but simply a name for a class of creatures. It was not real, but merely nominal. Nominalism, as we know, became the dominant attitude of Western thought, and especially of the philosophy of science. In the 18th century, Rousseau went so far as to suggest that society and the state had originally been formed by a contract between individuals. Society was an association, like the Rotary Club, which individuals had at some time joined and thereby abandoned their original independence. But from the standpoint of modern sociology, we feel that man is necessarily a social thing, if only for the reason that no individual can come into being without a father and a mother. And this is already society. Until quite recent times, it has been the prevailing view of Western science that animals and plants, rocks and gases, are composed of such units as molecules, cells, atoms, and other particles in much the same way that a house is composed of bricks. But a consistent nominalist will have to be forced into the position that there really is no such thing as the human body. There are only the particular molecules of which it is composed, or only the particular atoms, not to mention electrons, protons, neutrons, and so forth. Obviously, these particles do not by themselves constitute the human body. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, if only for the fact that a scientific description of the body must take account of the order or pattern in which the particles are arranged and of what they are doing. The man behind the microscope has this advice for you. Instead of asking what it is, just ask, what does it do? But even this is not enough. We must also ask, in what surroundings is it doing it? If a description of the human body must include the description of what it and all its parts are doing, that is, of its behavior, this behavior will be one thing in the open air, but quite another in a vacuum, in a furnace, or underwater. Blood in a test tube is not the same thing as blood in the veins, because it is not behaving in the same way. Its behavior has changed because its environment or context has changed, just as the meaning of one and the same word may change according to the kind of sentence in which it is used. There is a vast difference between the bark of a tree and the bark of a dog. It is not enough, therefore, to describe, define, and try to understand things or events by analysis alone, by taking them to pieces to find out how they are made. This tells us much, but probably rather less than half the story. Today, scientists are more and more aware that what things are and what they are doing depends on where and when they are doing it. If, then, the definition of a thing or event must include definition of its environment, we realize that any given thing goes with a given environment so intimately and inseparably that it is more and more difficult to draw a clear boundary between the thing and its surroundings. This was the grain of truth in the primitive and unreliable science of astrology, as there were also grains of truth in alchemy, herbal medicine, and other primitive sciences. For when the astrologer draws a picture of a person's character or soul, he draws a horoscope, that is, a very rough and incomplete picture of the whole universe as it stood at the moment of that person's birth. But this is at the same time a vivid way of saying that your soul, or rather your essential self, is the whole cosmos as it is centered around the particular time, place, and activity called John Doe. Thus, the soul is not in the body, but the body in the soul, and the soul is the entire network of relationships and processes which make up your environment and apart from which you are nothing. A scientific astrology, if it could ever be worked out, would have to be a thorough description of the individual's total environment: social, biological, botanical, meteorological, and astronomical, throughout every moment of his life. But as things are, we define, and so come to feel, the individual in the light of our narrowed spotlight consciousness, which largely ignores the field or environment in which he is found. Individual is the Latin form of the Greek atom, that which cannot be cut or divided any further into separate parts. We cannot chop off a person's head or remove his heart without killing him, but we can kill him just as effectively by separating him from his proper environment. This implies that the only true atom is the universe, that total system of interdependent thing events which can be separated from each other only in name. For the human individual is not built as a car is built. He does not come into being by assembling parts, by screwing a head onto a neck, by wiring a brain to a set of lungs, or by welding veins to a heart. Head, neck, heart, lungs, brain, veins, muscles, and glands are separate names but not separate events, and these events grow into being simultaneously and interdependently. In precisely the same way, the individual is separate from his universal environment only in name. When this is not recognized, you have been fooled by your name. Confusing names with nature, you come to believe that having a separate name makes you a separate being. This is, rather literally, to be spellbound. Naturally, it isn't the mere fact of being named that brings about the hoax of being a real person. It is all that goes with it. The child is tricked into the ego feeling by the attitudes, words, and actions of the society which surrounds him, his parents, relatives, teachers, and above all, his similarly hoodwinked peers. Other people teach us who we are. Their attitudes to us are the mirror in which we learn to see ourselves, but the mirror is distorted. We are perhaps rather dimly aware of the immense power of our social environment. We seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own, for we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, but which were given to us by our society. We copy emotional reactions from our parents, learning from them that excrement is supposed to have a disgusting smell and that vomiting is supposed to be an unpleasant sensation. The dread of death is also learned from their anxieties about sickness and from their attitudes to funerals and corpses. Our social environment has this power just because we do not exist apart from a society. Society is our extended mind and body. Yet the very society from which the individual is inseparable is using its whole irresistible force to persuade the individual that he is indeed separate. Society as we now know it is therefore playing a game with self-contradictory rules. Just because we do not exist apart from the community is able to convince us that we do, that each one of us is an independent source of action with a mind of its own. The more successfully the community implants this feeling, the more trouble it has in getting the individual to cooperate, with the result that children raised in such an environment are almost permanently confused. This state of affairs is known technically as the double bind. A person is put in a double bind by a command or request which contains a concealed contradiction. Stop being self-conscious. Try to relax. Or the famous prosecuting attorney's question to the man accused of cruelty to his wife. Have you stopped beating your wife yet? Answer yes or no. This is a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation which arises constantly in human and especially family relations. A wife complains to her husband, "Do you realize that since we were married 2 years ago, you haven't once taken me to the movies? It wasn't that way when you were courting. I think you're beginning to take me for granted." When the penitent husband returns from work the following evening, he says, "Darling, what about going to the movies after dinner?" And she replies, "You're only suggesting it because I complained." Society, as we now have it, pulls this trick on every child from earliest infancy. In the first place, the child is taught that he is responsible, that he is a free agent, an independent origin of thoughts and actions, a sort of miniature first cause. He accepts this make-believe for the very reason that it is not true. He can't help accepting it, just as he can't help accepting membership in the community where he was born. He has no way of resisting this kind of social indoctrination. It is constantly reinforced with rewards and punishments. It is built into the basic structure of the language he is learning. It is rubbed in repeatedly with such remarks as, "It isn't like you to do a thing like that," or "Don't be a copycat, be yourself." Or when one child imitates the mannerisms of another child whom he admires, "Johnny, that's not you. That's Peter." The innocent victim of this indoctrination cannot understand the paradox. He is being told that he must be free. An irresistible pressure is being put on him to make him believe that no such pressure exists. The community of which he is necessarily a dependent member defines him as an independent member. In the second place, he is thereupon commanded, as a free agent, to do things which will be acceptable only if done voluntarily. "You really ought to love us," say parents, aunts, uncles, brother and sisters. All nice children love their families and do things for them without having to be asked. In other words, we demand that you love us because you want to, and not because we say you ought to. Part of this nonsense is due to the fact that we confuse the must, expressing a condition, to be human you, must have a head, with the must expressing a command, you must put away your toys. No one makes an effort to have a head, and yet parents insist that, to be healthy, a child must have regular bowel movements, or that he must try to go to sleep, or that he must make an effort to pay attention, as if these goals were simply to be achieved by muscular exertion. Children are in no position to see the contradictions in these demands, and even if some prodigy were to point them out, he would be told summarily not to answer back, and that he lacked respect for his elders and betters. Instead of giving our children clear and explicit explanations of the game rules of the community, we befuddle them hopelessly because we, as adults, were once so befuddled and, remaining so, do not understand the game we are playing. A double-bind game is a game with self-contradictory rules, a game doomed to perpetual self-frustration, like trying to invent a perpetual motion machine in terms of Newtonian mechanics, or trying to trisect any given angle with a straight edge and compass. The social double-bind game can be phrased in several ways. The first rule of this game is that it is not a game. Everyone must play. You must love us. You must go on living. Be yourself, but play a consistent and acceptable role. Control yourself and be natural. Try to be sincere. Essentially, this game is a demand for spontaneous behavior of certain kinds. Living, loving, being natural or sincere, all these are spontaneous forms of behavior. They happen of themselves, like digesting food or growing hair. As soon as they are forced, they acquire that unnatural, contrived, and phony atmosphere, which everyone deplores, weak and scentless like forced flowers and tasteless like forced fruit. Life and love generate effort, but effort will not generate them. Faith in life, in other people, and in oneself is the attitude of allowing the spontaneous to be spontaneous in its own way and in its own time. This is, of course, risky because life and other people do not always respond to faith as we might wish. Faith is always a gamble because life itself is a gambling game with what must appear, in the hiding aspect of the game, to be colossal stakes. But to take the gamble out of the game, to try to make winning a dead certainty, is to achieve a certainty which is indeed dead. The alternative to a community based on mutual trust is a totalitarian police state, a community in which spontaneity is virtually forbidden. A Hindu treatise on the art of government, the Arthashastra, lays down the rules of policy for the complete tyrant, describing the organization of his palace, his court, and his state in such fashion as to make Machiavelli seem a liberal. The first rule is that he must trust no one and be without a single intimate friend. Beyond this, he must organize his government as a series of concentric circles composed of the various ministers, generals, officers, secretaries, and servants who execute his orders, every circle constituting a degree of rank leading up to the king himself at the center like a spider in its web. Beginning with the circle immediately surrounding the king, the circles must consist alternately of his natural enemies and his natural friends. Because the very highest rank of princes will be plotting to seize the king's power, they must be surrounded and watched by a circle of ministers eager to gain the king's favor. And this hierarchy of mutually mistrusting circles must go all the way out to the fringe of the web. Divide et impera, divide and rule. Meanwhile, the king remains in the safety of his inmost apartments, attended by guards who are in turn watched by other guards hidden in the walls. Slaves taste his food for poison, and he must sleep either with one eye open or with his door firmly locked on the inside. In case of a serious revolution, there must be a secret underground passage giving him escape from the center. A passage containing a lever which will unsettle the keystone of the building and bring it crashing down upon his rebellious court. The Arthashastra does not forget to warn the tyrant that he can never win. He may rise to eminence through ambition or the call of duty, but the more absolute his power, the more he is hated, and the more he is the prisoner of his own trap. The web catches the spider. He cannot wander at leisure in the streets and parks of his own capital, or sit on a lonely beach listening to the waves and watching the gulls. Through enslaving others, he himself becomes the most miserable of slaves. Nothing fails like success, because the self-imposed task of our society and all its members is a contradiction. To force things to happen which are acceptable only when they happen without force. This in turn arises from the definition of man as an independent agent, in the universe but not of it, saddled with the job of bending the world to his will. No amount of preaching and moralizing will tame the type of man so defined, for the hypnotic hallucination of himself as something separate from the world renders him incapable of seeing that life is a system of geological and biological cooperation. Certainly, the system contains fights, birds against worms, snails against lettuce, and spiders against flies. But these fights are contained in the sense that they do not get out of hand, that no one species is the permanent victor. Man alone is trying to eliminate his natural enemies in the conviction that he is, or should be, the supreme species. Just as we cultivate vegetables, cattle, and chickens for food in the realization that we depend upon these creatures for our life, we should also realize that enemy creatures which prey upon man, insects, bacteria, and various fungi, are in fact enemy friends. A New York hostess entertaining a statesman from Pakistan brought up the problem of the urgent need for birth control in Asia, and what was being done about it in Pakistan. She was utterly nonplussed with the reply that all the propaganda about birth control was merely the white man's attempt to maintain his superiority over the colored races. I told her that she should have answered, "No, indeed. We only want to help you to prune your beautiful fruit trees. For the enemy friends of man are his pruners. They prevent him from destroying himself by excess fertility, so that a person who dies of malaria or tuberculosis should be honored at least as much as one who has died for his country in battle. He has made room for the rest of us, and the bacteria which killed him should be saluted with proper chivalry as an honorable foe." The point is not that we should forthwith abandon penicillin or DDT. It is that we should fight to check the enemy, not to eliminate him. We must learn to include ourselves in the round of cooperations and conflicts, of symbiosis and praying, which constitutes the balance of nature. For a permanently victorious species destroys not only itself, but all other life in its environment. The obvious objection to an argument against wiping out such natural enemies of man as cancer or mosquitoes is our sympathy for the individuals who get caught. It is all very well to reason, in the abstract, that the human population has to be pruned. But when disease puts its finger on me, I run for the doctor. What would be the success of a call for volunteers for pruning? In Western civilization, we do not abandon sickly babies, shoot the insane, let the hungry starve, or leave diseased people to die on the streets. At least not in our better moments. For the most sacred ideal of our culture is the right of every individual to justice, health, and wealth, or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To suggest that the personal ego is a hallucination seems to be an attack on this most sacred value, without which civilized people would fall back to the level of coolies or ants to become an organized mass where the particular person is expendable. During World War II, a friend of mine used to fly Chinese laborers over the hump to work on the south end of the Burma Road. The long flight was, of course, ideal for gambling, but since there was not enough cash between them to make the game interesting, the stakes were that the final loser should jump off the plane. No parachute. Our natural reaction is that such people aren't fully human. Like the families and servants of ancient kings who were buried alive with their deceased lord. They seem, as Thomas Mann suggested, to be faces with no backs to their heads. Mere masks, mere roles of no further use or meaning, bees without a queen. Whatever villainies the British may have committed in India, their Christian consciences balked at the practice of sati, which required a widow to commit suicide at her husband's funeral. Truly civilized people are, we feel, not faces on the sky, but fully enclosed heads containing souls, each one of infinite value in the sight of God. At one extreme, then, we have the sacred individual, the unique personal ego, separate from both nature and God, defined as such by a society which, almost in the same breath, commands him to be free and commands him to conform. At the other extreme is the coolie, the cog in the industrial collectivist machine, or the mere hand, as the factory workers often called. If one believes that the personal ego is a natural endowment of all men, as distinct from a social convention, then the lot of the coolie is bleak indeed, for one sees him as a repressed and frustrated person, though his own society may never have defined him as such. However, there is a third possibility. The individual may be understood neither as an isolated person nor as an expendable humanoid working machine. He may be seen, instead, as one particular focal point at which the whole universe expresses itself, as an incarnation of the self, of the Godhead, or whatever one may choose to call it. This view retains and indeed amplifies our apprehension that the individual is in some way sacred. At the same time, it dissolves the paradox of the personal ego, which is to have attained the precious state of being a unique person at the price of perpetual anxiety for one's survival. The hallucination of separateness prevents one from seeing that to cherish the ego is to cherish misery. We do not realize that our so-called love and concern for the individual is simply the other face of our own fear of death or rejection. In his exaggerated valuation of separate identity, the personal ego is sawing off the branch on which he is sitting and then getting more and more anxious about the coming crash. Let it be clear, furthermore, that the ego fiction is in no way essential to the individual, to the total human organism, in fulfilling and expressing his individuality. For every individual is a unique manifestation of the whole, as every branch is a particular outreaching of the tree. To manifest individuality, every branch must have a sensitive connection with the tree, just as our independently moving and differentiated fingers must have a sensitive connection with the whole body. The point, which can hardly be repeated too often, is that differentiation is not separation. The head and the feet are different, but not separate. And though man is not connected to the universe by exactly the same physical relation as branch to tree or feet to head, he is nonetheless connected, and by physical relations of fascinating complexity. The death of the individual is not disconnection, but simply withdrawal. The corpse is like a footprint or an echo, the dissolving trace of something which the self has ceased to do. If, then, the differentiation of individuals is of great value, on the principle that variety is the spice of life, this value is not going to be enhanced by a self-contradictory definition of individuality. Our society, that is, we ourselves, all of us, is defining the individual with a double bind, commanding him to be free and separate from the world, which he is not, for otherwise the command would not work. Under the circumstances, it works only in the sense of implanting an illusion of separateness, just as the commands of a hypnotist can create illusions. Thus bamboozled, the individual, instead of fulfilling his unique function in the world, is exhausted and frustrated in efforts to accomplish self-contradictory goals. Because he is now so largely defined as a separate person caught up in a mindless and alien universe, his principal task is to get one up on the universe and to conquer nature. This is palpably absurd, and since the task is never achieved, the individual is taught to live and work for some future in which the impossible will at last happen, if not for him, then at least for his children. We are thus breeding a type of human being incapable of living in the present, that is, of really living. For unless one is able to live fully in the present, the future is a hoax. There is no point whatever in making plans for a future which you will never be able to enjoy. When your plans mature, you will still be living for some other future beyond. You will never be able to sit back with full contentment and say, now I've arrived. Your entire education has deprived you of this capacity because it was preparing you for the future, instead of showing you how to be alive now. In other words, you have been hypnotized or conditioned by an educational processing system arranged in grades or steps, supposedly leading to some ultimate success. First nursery school or kindergarten, then the grades or forms of elementary school, preparing you for the great moment of secondary school. But then more steps, up and up to the coveted goal of the university. Here, if you are clever, you can stay on indefinitely by getting into graduate school and becoming a permanent student. Otherwise, you are headed step by step for the great outside world of family raising, business, and profession. Yet graduation day is a very temporary fulfillment. For with your first sales promotion meeting, you are back in the same old system, being urged to make that quota, and if you do, they'll give you a higher quota. And so progress up the ladder to sales manager, vice president, and at last, president of your own show, about 40 to 45 years old. In the meantime, the insurance and investment people have been interesting you in plans for retirement, that really ultimate goal of being able to sit back and enjoy the fruits of all your labors. But when that day comes, your anxieties and exertions will have left you with a weak heart, false teeth, prostate trouble, sexual impotence, fuzzy eyesight, and a vile digestion. All this might have been wonderful if, at every stage, you had been able to play it as a game, finding your work as fascinating as poker, chess, or fishing. But for most of us, the day is divided into work time and playtime. The work consisting largely of tasks which others pay us to do because they are abysmally uninteresting. We therefore work not for the work's sake, but for money. And money is supposed to get us what we really want in our hours of leisure and play. In the United States, even poor people have lots of money compared with the wretched and skinny millions of India, Africa, and China, while our middle and upper classes, or should we say income groups, are as prosperous as princes. Yet by and large, they have but slight taste for pleasure. Money alone cannot buy pleasure, though it can help. For enjoyment is an art and a skill for which we have little talent or energy. I live close to a harbor packed with sailing boats and luxurious cruisers, which are seldom used because seamanship is a difficult, though rewarding art, which their owners have no time to practice. They bought the boats either as status symbols or as toys, but on discovering that they were not toys, as advertised, they lost interest. The same is true of the entire and astounding abundance of pleasure goods that we buy. Foodstuffs are prolific, but few know how to cook. Building materials abound in both quantity and variety, yet most homes look as if they had been made by someone who had heard of a house but never seen one. Silks, linens, wools, and cottons are available in colors and patterns galore, and yet most men dress like divinity students or undertakers, while women are slaves to the fashion game with its basic rule: I have conformed sooner than you. The market for artists and sculptors has thrived as never before in history, but the paintings look as if they had been made with excrement or scraps from billboards, and the sculptures like mangled typewriters or charred lumber from a burned-down outhouse. We have untold stacks of recorded music from every age and culture, and the most superb means of playing it. But who actually listens? Maybe a few pot smokers. This is perhaps a Henry Millerish exaggeration. Nevertheless, it strikes me more and more that America's reputation for materialism is unfounded. That is, if a materialist is a person who thoroughly enjoys the physical world and loves material things. In this sense, we are superb materialists when it comes to the construction of jet aircraft. But when we decorate the inside of these magnificent monsters for the comfort of passengers, it is nothing but frippery. High-heeled, narrow-hipped, doll-type girls serving imitation, warmed-over meals. For our pleasures are not material pleasures, but symbols of pleasure, attractively packaged but inferior in content. The explanation is simple. Most of our products are being made by people who do not enjoy making them, whether as owners or workers. Their aim in the enterprise is not the product but money, and therefore every trick is used to cut the cost of production and hoodwink the buyer by coloring and packaging chicanery into the belief that the product is well and truly made. The only exceptions are those products which simply must be excellent for reasons of safety or high cost of purchase. Aircraft, computers, space rockets, scientific instruments, and so forth. But the whole scheme is a vicious circle. For when you have made the money, what will you buy with it? Other pretentious fakes made by other money-mad manufacturers. The few real luxuries on the market are imports from backward countries, where peasants and craftsmen still take pride in their work. For example, the state of Oaxaca in Mexico produces some of the finest blankets in the world, and American buyers have been trying to import them in huge quantities. But no amount of money will give the relatively few craftsmen who weave them time to fill the order. If they want the order, they must begin to cheat and produce inferior blankets. The only solution would be to train hundreds of new craftsmen. But Oaxaca is just getting television and has, for some time, had public education. So what up-and-coming young person would want to waste his days weaving blankets? The poets and sages have indeed been saying for centuries that success in this world is vanity. The worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes. Or as we might put it in a more up-to-date idiom, just when our mouth was watering for the ultimate goodie, it turns out to be a mixture of plaster of Paris, papier-mâché, and plastic glue. Comes in any flavor. I have thought of putting this on the market as a universal substance, a prima materia for making anything and everything. Houses, furniture, flowers, bread. They use it already. Apples, and even people. The world, they are saying, is a mirage. Everything is forever falling apart, and there's no way of fixing it. And the more strenuously you grasp this airy nothingness, the more swiftly it collapses in your hands. Western technological civilization is, thus far, man's most desperate effort to beat the game, to understand, control, and fix this will-o'-the-wisp called life. And it may be that its very strength and skill will all the more rapidly dissolve its dreams. But if this is not to be so, technical power must be in the hands of a new kind of man. In times past, recognition of the impermanence of the world usually led to withdrawal. On the one hand, ascetics, monks, and hermits tried to exercise their desires so as to regard the world with benign resignation, or to draw back and back into the depths of consciousness to become one with the self in its unmanifest state of eternal serenity. On the other hand, others felt that the world was a state of probation, where material goods were to be used in a spirit of stewardship, as loans from the Almighty, and where the main work of life is loving devotion to God and to man. Yet both these responses are based on the initial supposition that the individual is the separate ego. And because this supposition is the work of a double bind, any task undertaken on this basis, including religion, will be self-defeating. Just because it is a hoax from the beginning, the personal ego can make only a phony response to life. For the world is an ever-elusive and ever-disappointing mirage, only from the standpoint of someone standing aside from it, as if it were quite other than himself, and then trying to grasp it. Without birth and death, and without the perpetual transmutation of all forms of life, the world would be static, rhythmless, undancing, mummified. But a third response is possible, not withdrawal, not stewardship on the hypothesis of a future reward, but the fullest collaboration with the world as a harmonious system of contained conflicts, based on the realization that the only real I is the whole endless process. This realization is already in us in the sense that our bodies know it, our bones and nerves and sense organs. We do not know it only in the sense that the thin ray of conscious attention has been taught to ignore it, and taught so thoroughly that we are very genuine fakes indeed.